what do you think they should feel comfortable with in terms of what could fall to them with the way that these boards are setting up or the different depth in this draft where the Cowboys could be sitting pretty at 24, picking from what?
Well, I think this is a draft, really. This is one of those drafts where Bill Walsh used to get very angry when scouts said this is a horrible draft, because when I was working for him, we only had 12 rounds, and he would say to me, we only need 12 players. Like, we don't have to make everybody else happy. And he hated scouts to say it was a bad draft. But I think this is a draft that is really more about the horizontal board than it is actually the vertical board. And what does that mean? So the vertical board is you line the players vertically at the position that they play, running backs, versus top to bottom. The horizontal board is comparing who's the best player to draft, the running back at 62 or the defensive lineman at 62. Who's the better player? They're both graded the same, but they're not the same, right? And this is a draft where there's going to be a lot of players clustered in the same category of drafting. And if you get stuck on wanting to fix a position, you're going to take your margin for error will increase. And I think if I were Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and Will McClay, I would basically say, look, today we're throwing out our team needs. We are throwing them all out the window. I don't care about anything. We are going to pick the best player that comes available to us when it's our time to pick. We don't care who it is, what position it is, because 4 years from now we'll be successful because we stuck with the guy who was the best. I know everybody says that, but not everybody does that. This draft, for me, is the most important way to handle that.
Well, fortunately for the Cowboys, it seems like they have a lot of needs. When you look at offensive line, D-end, we now got a corner situation with Kelvin Joseph, and wide receiver as well with Gallup hurt and Amari Cooper going to Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a lot of teams could get. Let's put things in perspective too. This draft is not about the Cowboys 2022 team. What Micah Parsons did last year, the sensational play that he had, is kind of rare. Show me many rookies that dominate the game like Micah did. No, it's hard. This draft is for the 2023 team. That's really what it's for. Those players that you draft on Thursday night and Friday and Saturday, their impact is going to be felt more in 23 than 22. So you have to kind of take a look at the lens through the 23 year. And if you do that, you'll find yourself some really good players that can help you. And it doesn't matter. I think so often, I tell this story all the time. Ron Wolf's sitting there in the draft, his first draft in Tampa Bay, and it's the start of a franchise. He has the first pick overall in the draft. He's building a franchise. He wants to take a quarterback. Well, there was one quarterback, Richard Todd. He threw 17 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions. He was running the wishbone. Instead of taking the quarterback, he took Leroy Selman, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Take the best player.
Michael, I want to read just a couple names that were thrown out in the recent mock drafts for the Cowboys and just see if any jump out to you whatsoever, good or bad. Peter King has Linderbaum. Trevor Penning, Northern Iowa, was another selection for the Cowboys. Nakobe Dean, your linebacker specialty. And then Zion Johnson out of Boston College. Names that keep getting attached to the Cowboys. Any of those jump out?
I love Zion Johnson. I think he's a really smart player. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he can play anywhere inside, plug and play, left guard. He could play right guard. I think he's got the intelligence. He's a 5-year senior, which I really like. I don't think there's a chance that the Penning kid will make it to him. I think he's going to go. I think those offensive linemen are moving up the board. I think, we go through all these mocks and you got 22 receivers going in the first round. I mean, it's unbelievable. and the reality of it is football's won in the offensive and defensive lines. And so every guy in a mock draft starts passing out receivers like they're candy on a corner. And I think Penning will go much higher. I think if they could get Zion Johnson down there, I think that would be a great get.
Do you see them trading up? When you trade up for, is there positions you wouldn't trade up to get? How about that?
Well, I wrote about this on VSiN.com. I think every team has 3 different categories of people that draft, right? So, and you have to break it down. Part of being a draft person is you got to understand every team, how they draft, how they think, how they behave. And usually you can quantify that into 3 categories. The first category is the guy who's static, the Mike Brown. They're never going to move. George Young was this way with the Giants. He's just picking his picks. He's staying where he is. That's the static picker. Then there's the lover, right? And that's typically Jerry. Jerry falls in love. He wants to trade up and get a guy. And then there's the cluster guy, the guy who doesn't really care. He'll move to a cluster of players and pick whichever one's left. That's usually the guy who drafts the best. When you have a lover mentality, that's what Jimmy was. Jimmy was a cluster drafter. He wasn't a lover, and so that's why they were so successful. I think this is a draft where you've got to say, Jerry, this is not the time. We can't fall in love. This is the time where we can't give away assets just to get one guy. People say, well, there's no depth in this draft. The draft is really bad. We got to get one guy and get out of here. I think that's the wrong way to think of this draft.